Hello and welcome. You're watching us here on a very special edition of Consumption Corner. We have with us an assortment of guests who will discuss the D2C universe. And this, as KPMG in association with Quora has come out with an interesting report which has some insights on the consumer space based on user activity on Quora itself. And the findings are quite telling. They've said that, there have been a fair amount of searches for beauty products, largely for long-term solutions as against quick fix. In health and packaged food, green tea still rules the roost. And as far as pet food is concerned, we have dog-related content, which is still 80% of the overall universe, which is 20% being with cats. So to, mull a little more over the findings of this report and talk a lot more about the D2C space at large, we have Pallab Roy, who's the partner at KPMG India, Gurmit Singh, who's the general manager APAC and MEA at Quora, Varun Sadana, who's the founder of Supertails, and Vikas D Nahar, founder of Happilo Snacks. You've been seeing those ads where the mascot throws, dry fruit at unsuspecting people out there as well. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for joining in. Let's start with the authors of the report, Pallab as well as Gurmit. Pallab, the one thing that stood out in this report was the surge in digital content and perhaps consumption as a whole because of the pandemic. Now we're post-pandemic. Just wanted to understand, how have those trends panned out? Has growth slowed down and the new normal is still above the pre-pandemic days?
Thank you for having me on the show. In terms of the pandemic, it was really an inflection point for e-commerce and D2C. And what you see in terms of your numbers and in terms of your growth, possibly if you look at data sources published by CI and others, you will see we have about 119 million consumers, or 8% of our retail businesses from e-commerce. While in the pandemic, if you also see some of the research that we did as KPMG on a separate research report, it showed that e-commerce went up to almost about 17% during the pandemic. So obviously there is some balancing post-pandemic, because obviously during the pandemic times, the other channels were not available to consumers. Now that they are, I think there is some rebalancing. However, this is a pure tectonic shift in terms of consumer commerce, which means our consumers are exhibiting truly omni-channel behavior. And that is what is probably here to stay in terms of how consumers are seeking brands, seeking products, engaging with the products and ultimately buying them. And that is what we also see as a clear reference in our Quora reports as well. Also, you will see the participation of tier 2, tier 3 cities is pretty high. And this trend is only here to stay. So from that lens, I would say more than just looking at e-com as a channel, consumer commerce is here to stay. And it's a true omni-channel consumer that we are doing.
Right. Gurmit, your thoughts on this space? Percentage of Quora users who said that will go ahead and make purchases. For hairstyling, that was 81%, whereas for shampoo, it was 40%. Just trying to understand, what explains this divergence, because both of them are applied to the same part of the body.
So, we have different kind of readers who are there and their different interests. What is more important is the macro scenario, what has happened post-pandemic. So I would like to quote the Group M TYNY report, which has come out post the pandemic. And that says that, advertisers are spending more monies on digital now than on television. So consumption habits, which have changed during the pandemic, some of them are kind of still evolving right now. And therefore, you have different people at different stages of life, and therefore their interests are kind of, different at different points of time. So what we do is Quora shares insights with, all our clients. We share with them what is happening periodically, and that allows them to kind of, pick up insights and therefore, tailor make their strategies accordingly. So that's the unique thing which is there, which we share with our clients.
All right, let's now get in the D2C players themselves. Varun from Supertails and Vikas from Happilo as well. Varun, there was this big surge in pet care, and that's likely to be one of those leading industries going forward as a category. It's emerging quite a bit. Post-pandemic, what have the divergent trends been? And just wanted to understand, how has pet care purchase behavior been, from a GT standpoint, from an MT standpoint, and now e-commerce?
The kind of things that we're seeing in the last 2-3 years, the biggest question, at least during COVID, was, is it going to stay, right? And what we have seen is, last year is a good indicator of that, and so is the current year, that the growth is not stopping, right? And the growth actually is happening across all segments, largely food. But to your question on GT and MT versus e-commerce, well, this category, the largest growth has been on e-commerce and quick commerce to some extent. But that doesn't mean that, like Gurmit also mentioned, the offline has been an integral part of the growth as well. All of us can see so many pet care, shops kind of increasing around the corner. So it's been an all-round growth for pet care, largely because one, it's one of the segments which has increased very quickly, and second, the premiumization is slowly happening, and the need for more pet products, largely pet food, is absolutely there, and it will keep on increasing. Is how we see it.
Right, and Vikas, your product category is one of the most interesting ones. It's dry fruit. It's not something that people are unfamiliar with. It isn't something that people haven't been consuming or talking about the benefits of. But you have put a branded, organized twist to the same. Just trying to understand, how do you navigate through this? Because I don't have data, but anecdotal evidence suggests that a lot of it is still brought from offline channels, and a lot of it is still unorganized. How do you plan to work around that?
Regarding this unorganized market and regarding dry fruit as an industry, when we started, there was no branded presence in India. So we are leading brands today, trying to structure the dry fruit market per se. So when we started around 2016, the acceptance of packaged dry fruit was not so high. We had to create a lot of innovation in terms of product, in terms of how do we increase the shelf life, how do you give the same product consistently every time when the consumer opens the pack, and how can it make it more aspirational. During the COVID time, I think as business would say, people started eating healthy. The junk foods went down, and health foods went up, and people consider Happilo as a very healthy brand selling dry fruit and based products. So we are actually able to raise our revenues 4x during the COVID era.
All right, and what's the run rate that you're currently growing at?
Run rate, you can say it's around 500.
All right, 500 crores. Interesting there. So, and that brings me back to some of the findings of the report itself. 57% of Quora users actually indicated their interest in food and drinks. While we're talking about dry fruits, we're talking about various categories. The most amount of curiosity was generated still by green tea. Green tea had the significant share of everyone's curiosity and purchase decisions, etc. Oatmeal and cereals were next in line, but a far distance. How do you view, Gurmit, these trends, and do you see these sustaining and staying online, or at some point these guys will have to go offline as well?
So these trends, Mangalam, are a lot to do, what happened during the pandemic. During the pandemic, people were doing a lot of search on the virus, and therefore, related things. And a lot of related things were, health related. So therefore, if you see, things like cereals, oatmeal, green tea, these are things that kind of, spiked during the pandemic. And those trends kind of remain even now. Pre-pandemic, the media was more traditional in nature. And like I said, now that, digital has gone ahead of television and other traditional media, people are more and more, clients are more and more trying to reach out to the consumer where he is spending more of his time. So wherever he's researching, wherever he is kind of, reading about it. And that's where I think all the attention is. And that's where health, foods and related are getting a huge amount of uplift.
All right, gentlemen, stay on. We have a lot more to discuss with you. We'll just take a short break, come back and continue this conversation. We've set the stage. Now we will discuss a lot more about the future. Stay tuned.